Since 1775, the United States Marine Corps has been the world's greatest fighting force, and today we're visiting the National Marine Corps Museum just outside Quantico. Stay tuned. If you're new to this channel, we're on a mission to inspire and inform new scouting parents and adult leaders. And today, we're starting off the very first video of our Memorial May series. Throughout the month, we'll be visiting different memorial sites and hopefully inspiring you to take your scouts to those locations, all in preparation for Memorial Day. And today, we're starting off strong with a very iconic building just outside Quantico. Operated under the command of the Marine Corps University, the National Marine Corps Museum's mission is to preserve and exhibit the material history of the U.S. Marine Corps. It honors the commitment, accomplishment, and sacrifice of Marines, supports recruitment, training, education, and retention of Marines, and provides the public with a readily accessible platform for the exploration of Marine Corps history. The building itself was designed by Fentress architects, and the museum's architecture is inspired by the iconic photograph of the flag raising over Iwo Jima. A 210-foot stainless steel mast rises above a glass and steel structure symbolizing the Marine Corps' enduring legacy. The museum offers an immersive experience with exhibits that chronicle the history of the Marine Corps from its inception in 1775 to the present day. And trust me, that's not just some cliche statement from their website. One thing that makes this museum stand out compared to others that you may have visited is their attention to detail. Throughout every single exhibit, you are presented with some of the most realistic mannequins and scenarios and places that I have ever seen. I can say that it's a little bit startling when you see someone peeking around the corner and it turns out to be a mannequin. It isn't just the mannequins that are real here, they have real weaponry that has been decommissioned, and then they have things like real aircraft, and on the other side there's an armored personnel carrier. There's just a bunch of amazing things to see here. You can also have a great time with your scouts and tell them this is the first ever Cybertruck. Each era has its own immersive experience, and that is what makes this museum so cool to experience. Visitors can experience realistic simulations such as the cold conditions of the Korean War's chosen reservoir, dismounting from a helicopter in Vietnam, and even walk in the streets of Iraq. Now, full disclosure, some of these scenes can be pretty intense for your scouts or maybe some veterans within your party. There will be warnings at the entrance to some exhibits because of the realism. Having spent multiple years in the Middle East to include 2 tours to Iraq, I can say that they nail the realism very, very well. If you would like to bypass those areas, some of the exhibits such as the Iraqi War era can be bypassed if the experience is too much for certain members of your group. Just please be aware of that. Now, while that may be enough to make you want to rush inside and start a tour, do not discount the exterior of the museum. The grounds surrounding the museum is the Semper Fidelis Memorial Park, a 10-acre area designed for reflection and inspiration. The park features over 1 mile of ADA-compliant trails with more than 40 monuments and memorials dedicated to the service of all Marines. Finally, overlooking the museum is the Memorial Chapel. This small building is a great location to just sit and reflect either before or after your visit to the museum. Please just ensure that your scouts are behaving appropriately when inside. So that's what the museum is, but why would you want to bring your scouts to this museum? Well, let's go ahead and dive into that. Reason number 1, which should be fairly obvious, is for the history. The museum is pretty much an enormous time capsule filled with various weapons, vehicles, and relics from all around the world. And even if the military is not your thing, this isn't just military history, but this is American history. As I said in the beginning, the building's design is meant to replicate the look of the flag raising over Mount Suribachi during the Battle of Iwo Jima. What adds to the symbolism of this design is found in the World War II era exhibit. Because in this exhibit sits the second flag raised over Mount Suribachi during the Battle of Iwo Jima. That's right, you heard that correctly. The actual flag from one of the most iconic Marine photos is present within the museum itself. This is a prime moment to gather your scouts and talk about the next reason to visit the museum. Reason number 2 is to discuss shared core values. The core values of the Marine Corps are honor, courage, and commitment. These values guide the behavior and action of all Marines, emphasizing integrity, bravery, and dedication to service. Knowing that, it's not a stretch to show how living the Scout Oath and Scout Law can go hand in hand with military service and the service to others. And while the entirety of the museum itself is a treasure trove of examples of service, one hits really hard, and all you have to do, if you still happen to be by the Iwo Jima flag raising, is to turn around and look at the wall behind you. This wall is dedicated to those who lost their lives on the beaches of Iwo Jima. The eagle globe and anchors represent each Marine. The anchor represents mostly naval corpsmen, and yes, even a singular Coast Guardsman who was lost during the battle. The number of devices on the wall really hits hard about just how many young men died to secure one singular island in the Pacific, and is a great talking point about service and sacrifice for a greater cause, which we'll talk about later on in this month. But before you leave this area, there is one more secret hidden on this wall. If you back up from the wall and give it a little squint, you'll see the outline of Mount Suribachi and even a destroyer. A staff member had to point this out to me. Having been in the museum multiple times, I was shocked I missed this amazing sight. Trust me, it's worth a moment to just feel the inspiration. Which brings us to our next reason to bring your scouts here. Reason number 3 is patriotism and inspiration for military service. As I said before, while this museum is meant to be Marine history, that history is American history. Walking the halls of the museum, it's very easy to point out the stories or figures that inspire American patriotism. Not just the flag flying over Iwo Jima, but some various humanitarian efforts led by the Marines and U.S. service members. Additionally, each era has a story that is likely to inspire your scouts to consider military service in the future. Finally, here are some quick talking points that kind of help stir conversation with your scouts. Talking about how the understanding of other cultures can help meet mutual objectives with foreign partners. The importance of understanding and practicing first aid.
You can reinforce things like you can sleep anywhere in the field. That maintaining one's equipment is important even if you're in the worst conditions. And that candy is always acceptable out in the field. Also, if you're trying to be creative in your explanation of what it is that you're doing, those above you, aka your scoutmaster, are gonna question you.
The next question likely on every scout leader and scout's mind is, can I knock out some requirements while I'm here? Maybe some merit badges, or maybe get a cool patch? And the answer is, yes, you can. For our Cub Scouts, here are a few examples. Please forgive me while I read from the sheet. For Tigers, you've got stories and shapes. The Scouts are talking about art. Requirements 1 and 2 can be knocked out in the museum. On the second floor, there is an art gallery with various works centered around the Marines and their history. So go ahead and give that a look. For our Wolves, you have the Footsteps adventure where the Scout is talking about their faith. Requirement number 1 says to talk with your family about their faith traditions and what holidays you celebrate. And while not all Scouting families have a specific faith, some do celebrate holidays that are associated with military service, such as the Memorial Day that is coming up this month. This is a great opportunity for parents and grandparents to talk about their military service and why it is that we celebrate these various holidays. And finally, for our Bears, we have Pause for Action, which is an absolute slam dunk. Requirement number 2 is to identify 3 symbols that represent the United States. Pick your favorite and make a model, work of art, or other craft that depicts that symbol. There are plenty of symbols around the museum for your scout to choose from. You can also knock out the various hiking requirements for the different adventures while walking out in the Memorial Park. For our older scouts seeking some merit badges, you can also work on the American Heritage Merit Badge or fulfill requirements for citizenship in the nation or citizenship in the world. Finally, does the museum have a special badge or award for going there? And the answer is yes and no. The museum does have a special patch with the BSA symbol on the top of it, but all you have to do is buy it in the gift shop. There's no requirements or special tasks that you have to complete in order to earn this patch, at least as of the filming of this video. But hopefully I have inspired you to set a date to go see the museum. If so, check out this video here about the logistics such as times, locations, eating at the museum, and all the other considerations. I go more in depth in here to kind of separate the why and the how. But with that, I've been Matt with the Roaming Scouter, and I'll see you out there.